Super. Thanks much. Okay, so here we go. Can I get a thumbs up to make sure you can see my screen, Chris? Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the scope of the challenge here. You may or may not know this, but nationally, more than 100,000 educator positions were a shortfall in 2019 K-12. 100,000. That means we're filling educator roles with emergency certified, people going to school part-time to get their certification, using paraprofessionals, being creative about how we're hiring or staffing. That's quite a bit. Pre-pandemic, nearly 300,000 educators were projected to leave the profession between the decade of 2016 and 2026. Sadly and interestingly, though, the completion of people who were in teacher preparation programs getting ready to graduate fell by about a third during that almost same decade. There was a little bit of overlap there. There were only 160 completers, for example, in 2018. So the number of positions we need is increasing because of retirements. That was pre-COVID, and we have fewer people going into education. We now have an increasing gap there. 1 in 3 teachers said that COVID-19 made them more likely to resign or retire early. Can I just see a show of hands or maybe something in the chat room and an emoji if this is something that's going on where you are? Are you seeing greater numbers of people leaving?
A lot of yeses.
Lots of yeses out there. Yeah, how about some of the rest of you? We've got about 30 people with us today. Are you seeing folks leaving in your schools or school districts or talking about early retirements? Yeah, thanks, Tiffany, Cherie, Bonnie, Michelle, Veronica. Thanks, appreciate you sharing. What does this look like where you are? And do you see this as a teacher stress issue?
Oops, Kimber, I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Bonnie, you made me crack up with the OMG, totally get it. And no problem for those of us out there that have been on teams for a year and a half. We're always, all of us have always been like having those multitask kind of things happen. So totally understand. It is so hard to find qualified teachers. Thank you, Susan. Yes. Tricia says yes. Emma says no substitutes means teachers are spread thin and pressured because they can't take leave and knowing when their kids' needs won't be met. Absolutely. It's like you wrote my slides that I'm going to be sharing. Veronica says definitely stress for their own health, for the extra responsibilities, lots of unfilled positions. I've been seeing comments in the news about teacher drafts, actually, which is kind of interesting language. Yeah. Yeah, the need of quarantine students, completely. I think this is pretty universally widespread. When I got up to Vermont a couple of years ago, folks around here said, what teacher shortage? We have more people applying than ever before for teacher positions, and that's definitely not true even here. Two sources for some of the information I'm going to be sharing with you today: the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning, also known as CASEL, and the National Educator Association for Educators as well. But these folks did a survey of about 5,000 teachers this past year and found the following were the top answers about how they were feeling about their year. The teachers reported feeling anxiety, fear, worry, being overwhelmed, and being sad. Does this resonate with anybody? If you had to put in one word, one emotional word to describe maybe even how you're feeling about this academic year, or if you don't feel like sharing personally, what do you think most folks around you are feeling? If you had to put one word in the chat room, what would it be? Overwhelmed. Good, Veronica. Thank you so much. Discouraged. Oh yeah, Autumn. Totally get that. Overwhelmed again. Bonnie says stress. Thank you, Ashley. Anybody else? Stressed. Thanks, Carol. If you'd like to participate in the chat room and are not sure how, you should have a window that shows a little talking bubble, either at the bottom or top of your screen, and you can click on that and it'll pop up. Scared, uncertain. Yeah, thanks, Sherry. Appreciate it. Exhausted. Good one, Emma. Yeah. More stress, Carol, Michelle. Scared. Good link. Thanks, Chris. It's interesting to me to note that in a prior study, the emotions that teachers were reporting talked about frustration, being overwhelmed, having stress, being tired, and feeling a lack of support, but also happy. So the current state doesn't have any even little glimmer of that balance of maybe being happy, or that things feel kind of normal in terms of being tired or having stress, anxiety, fear, worry, being overwhelmed, sad. This and Erica mentions exhausted. Yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. People say like, how are you doing? And I think, I just want more sleep. I just feel exhausted. And all of this is having a pretty profound impact on our ability to work. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. The reasons for this fell into two buckets, according to the survey research. The first one was personal, just issues about the pandemic, right? But the second one, the one that we're going to talk about, is this bucket related to work. And the first piece of that was the respondents talked about the difficulty managing their needs of the self and others. So kids in their classroom, but also kids at home, caretaking for parents, caretaking for husbands, spouses, wives, partners, domestic partnerships, all of those kinds of things. The stress at work, including adapting technology. The stress at work involved being a parent and needing to take care of children at home with their schools at their varying grade levels, but also taking care of their own students. So there was this double or triple burdening of teachers in the field, and overall this huge work-life imbalance. Any thoughts from you folks out there? Does this sound, like a little kind of a face validity check? Does this sound like the things that you're seeing or you're feeling? Veronica says, yes, most definitely. Thanks. Ashley mentions the work-life imbalance, right? I feel like I'm shortchanging kind of everybody on both or all ends of the spectrum. Carol says, yes, thank you. Okay. Loss of loved ones. Yes, very, very real loss. Yeah, many people have lost family members, friends, colleagues, mentors, and then there's been a lot of unnamed loss of graduations, loss of weddings, loss of family reunions, loss of time with family members who live across the country. We're also spread out in ways that we didn't used to be when we were in small communities. So there's been a tremendous amount of loss that people haven't yet even had time to grieve through, and yet we're back in what we had hoped would be a reunion with life before pandemic, and depending on where everyone lives, those experiences are really different. But we're not back. 85% of educators report their work-life imbalance was affecting their ability to teach. So almost everybody. 30% of teachers leave the field within the first 5 years in general. And when you combine these things, I think we're looking at uh, a very compelling point in time at which we need to do something, all of us. The research indicates that there are some protective factors for the kinds of problems that we're all experiencing. And here are the two biggies for educators. The first is emotional recognition, being able to understand what emotions feel like, what they are, name them. We'll get into the specifics of that in just a little bit. The causes and the consequences of emotion. Most folks haven't received any kind of formal or informal training on emotions, on how to handle this fear, worry, anxiety, and feelings of being overwhelmed. The second protective factor for teachers in schools is to have administrators with developed emotional skills. And when I say administrators, I'm going to say everybody that's not in the in the classroom scenario. So principals, vice principals, school counselors, school psychs. I think even nurses can play a role here. Anybody in the front office or that isn't tied to a classroom. So we're going to talk a little bit about those emotional skills. Tell me a little bit about your thinking on that. How do you see your own emotional skill set? Do you feel like you're an expert, like you're getting it, like you wish you had more training? Is this something you feel comfortable about or with? And again, if you don't want to share out for you, you can talk about the people around you that you see, or a generic big idea related to school or school district. No right or wrong answers here. As a former special education teacher, I'm pretty good at wait time, so I'll give you a little bit of time, but I'm just wondering, what do you think about your own emotional skill levels? Not enough time. Good, Ashley, thank you. To provide the social emotional supports due to other job demands. Yes, it's so true. In fact, as I was preparing for this, I was thinking, I need to be writing about this. I need to be writing more about this. I need to get another article out. I need to do something to talk to people. And I thought, when am I going to do that? I don't have time. So then there's this panic feeling like there's more needs out there, but how do we balance that? Veronica shares she feels like she does pretty well in recognizing and managing, but has a hard time helping others. It feels like they don't want the help or are not ready. Oh, that's really insightful. Autumn shares that she feels good, pretty comfortable this, but agrees with Ashley that there's no time. I will also note that I will try to use they, them pronouns, but I will occasionally slip into she, her, he, them. So if you would like a particular pronoun, please feel free to put that after your name so I can use that correctly for your identity. Michaela, I don't say your name right, and I'm so sorry. Michaela feels pretty strong in this area. Thank you. Alvin says they are fortunate. They worked in hospitals and clinic settings for 25 years for a school district. So had lots of mentorship and supervision. Schools lack this support, and I've worked hard to bring this mindset to my district. Awesome, Alvin. Well, please do share out some ideas when we get to that section of this talk. More time, yes. Susan keeps a prayer chain going for students and staff. Yep, I've worked with some schools that folks have met after school to do those kinds of things. Also seen folks do mindfulness training, and here at UVM, I've been working with someone to maybe consider starting some kind of a yoga group where people could get together and just stretch and take a breath, take a break from everything that's going on. Lots of ideas. Thank you for sharing those. If we don't do something about the emotional needs of the folks around us, including ourselves, there are a number of problematic outcomes for all of us. The impact that emotion has on attention, memory, and learning is pretty dramatic. And lots of articles you could read out there about how cortisol impacts and stress levels impact our ability to make decisions, and that we end up with a hijacked brain. We end up unable to quickly respond or even make good decisions, that we're in kind of a perpetual flight or fight state. If we are consumed with emotion, I think all of us have been at least once in our lives, perhaps daily, in a position where our ability to attend, our ability to recall or use our memory or learn new things just isn't there. We don't have the capacity or bandwidth for that. When we have problems with emotions, our relationships can be damaged. And there's some studies to suggest that we might be alienating students with our tone, our body posture, our irritability, our quickness to respond in critical or negative ways. And that can lead students to not necessarily feeling safe in classrooms. And we have a lot of students who have a trauma-informed way of interacting in the world. We know that impact can have a negative, that emotion can have a negative impact on our health and well-being. And we also see it in our performance. Our ability to engage and stay motivated is greatly hampered by emotional challenges. Welcome to those of you that are just now joining us. So what do we do about all of this, and whose responsibility is it? I think it's each of us, it's all of us in large and small ways, and recognizing that none of us have the time, and that we have to find a way to prioritize some time for this in what we're doing. And part of what we can start to do is speak up. I work with people who are pretty vocal, and it's amazing to me how I can forget to pay attention to what people's most immediate needs are if they're not speaking up. And this is something I really care about, and it's still easy to forget. So I would say for each and all of us that part of this, our first step is taking some time and making this a piece of the agenda of what we're working on, that we don't continue to just fight fires or just try to engage in business as usual or getting back to what we had before. This is an opportunity for us to talk about and create space for handling the emotions that are a part of what we do and a part of what teachers are struggling to do every day. If we don't, things are not going to get better on their own. There are 3 things with research to support their use as strategies with educators. And the first one is to avoid mixed messages. And I know this is something that I'm going to put on a Post-it note and hang near my computer where I send out emails. We often say in the same sentence, take care of yourself, take care of your health, find work-life balance. And in that same sentence, we will say, I also need this spreadsheet from you, this list of students, this volunteering for XYZ committee. So I think one of the things we can do is be really cognizant of those mixed messages. We're asking people to do more, and we're also saying, take time for yourself and make sure you're healthy and well. They don't necessarily go together. In fact, they're probably contraindicated. We've got to, as leaders, as teachers, as colleagues, be able to voice and speak out. Do we have to do that right now? Is this something that could wait till next semester or next year or later in the semester? Our sense of urgency, I think, has to be around taking care of people and their emotional wellness before we get to some of those other pieces. The second thing is to psychoeducation. Educate the community about emotions and their impact. The vast majority of people have not had any kind of formal training in what emotions are, where they come from, what kind of damage they can do to the body, or the ways that they can improve and enhance performance. So finding ways or opportunities to educate the community are something we're going to talk about. And then the third is to establish norms around emotions or feelings. And there are a lot of ways to do this, and I'm going to share some of those with you. So here are the 5 big pieces of any kind of educational programming around emotion. And I'll have your emails after this. I am going to try to do some writing on this and put something together, and I'll pass it out to everybody for you to use it if you'd like. The first piece of it is to recognize emotions accurately. So how do they feel in the body? How do people recognize that they're having emotions and know what those are? Does anybody have any clever or funny stories about people who aren't able to recognize their emotions or talk about their feelings? Not even the talking about part, but just knowing the feeling. If I were to ask my dad something that was a feeling statement, like, how do you feel about that? He would give me an answer that says, well, I think. Which I just love my dad, and I find that kind of charming. But to me, it's a really clear indication about the importance and our shared lack of understanding how to recognize emotions accurately. Even things like fear or sadness can come across to people at times as anger and be masking that. All right, I'm going to keep moving on here. Understanding causes of emotion and the consequences of those emotions on the body. The neurology, the physiology of that. Lots of information out there, but this is can be a piece of, and an important piece of supporting teachers is first to be able to teach other adults how to recognize emotions accurately, and then second to understand the causes and consequences. When you think about our educators and our training of educators, and this is something that I spend a great deal of time doing, isn't it interesting that we want folks to work with kids about their emotions, their behaviors, but we don't necessarily provide adequate training about this for the adults in the room? Anybody see any examples of that?
Well, I know, Kimber, that that I work a lot with SEL, and after spending a year, and then finally Castle released a self-reflection form, and I thought, I've never thought about how self-awareness or relationship skills, how it applies to me directly. It's always, okay, how can I get teachers to use it? How can I get students and develop those skills and build on their strengths? And then just taking a minute to go through like each of those areas and saying, yeah, okay, this is how I use it. Maybe I need to, like, my particular lesson I love is stay calm with others, which is a lesson that we teach to, kids all the time. And I'm thinking, you know what? That's a lesson I need to refresh with myself.
Right, and our kids and our
Yep.
adult partners and colleagues. Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. So understanding causes and consequences, being able to label emotions accurately, being able to express emotions, sorry for the typo on my slide, and the skills to regulate emotion. And I think we tend to start at the one on the bottom. We work on emotional regulation a lot, but we forget that these other pieces are necessary preemptively. Here's one example of an activity that you could do at a school that would help to support emotional development and regulation in educators, and administrators. Getting groups of people together to first share out what they want to feel like at work. So I shared with you what the national survey of teachers was about what people are feeling like. But what if we took some time to get together and say, what do you want to feel like? And what feelings do you want to be able to express at work? What should work feel like to you? And you can do this as an activity where people write down individually the top 3 emotions that they want to feel when they come to work. I'm going to ask you to do just one of those for me in the chat room. What one emotion would you like to feel when you're at work? I'll start with mine. Hey, Sri and I are on the same page. Awesome. Safety, fulfillment, good. Veronica's, I think, a similar sentiment there as well. Michelle, safe, competent, good. Emma, thank you. Trisha, valued. Yeah. Do I get to say you took my answer? No. Do you want to be able to express anger, I'm assuming, Susan, as opposed to feeling anger? All of the above. Appreciated. Yeah. Oh, so important, Tiffany. Thank you. So you would do this kind of an activity where people might put their individual thoughts down on paper, maybe 3. And then you would collect them, put them all up together, or you could do this with one of those Post-it note apps where it's done electronically. Padlet, I think is what that one's called. You could put that up on a white screen or a whiteboard, or you could simply write them down as part of an activity. And then as the full group, talk about what that looks like for the community. Group them together and see what things maybe bubble up. What would be the top 5 as an illustration for the whole group that you would to share? Francis shares, being human with one another, reflect and finding joy and humor with our surrounding community, co-workers. Nice. Very nice. Thank you, Francis. Appreciate that. Yeah. So if you've got all of these, if this were our practice session, you've got all these pieces together, you put them up on the whiteboard, the overhead, the electronic high-tech stuff like a Padlet, and say, what as a community or a group are we going to say together that this is what we're going to share in as our emotional value system for coming to work? And then from that, how is that going to be our standard of care and practice, and what activities will follow to support the desired feelings? So in our group, many of us want to feel fulfilled, valued, safe, competent. So let's take appreciated, Tiffany's idea or desire. If appreciation is one that rises to the top, that a big chunk of our faculty or our teachers are saying, I just wish I could feel appreciated. I want to come to a place where I feel appreciated. Then the activities that admin or leadership or a climate committee could get, or teachers as a whole could get together to work on, might be to improve the way we feel appreciated. In fact, I was just putting together a list of some folks that I was going to write notes to. I try to send out some emails randomly and occasionally throughout the week that just tell people that I appreciate them for something that they did or something that I noticed. I got a $5 gift card for Starbucks, and I'm going to pin that on the door of the guy that takes out the trash on my hallway. So lots of little ways, low cost, no cost ways to make one another feel appreciated. And how we even share that out with classrooms, writing thank you notes to teachers, to specials teachers, to bus drivers, to one another, that could make each other feel appreciated. So what I'd like to do now is break us into some small talking groups. Chris is going to help me with that. And we're going to take about 10 minutes. And I'd like for you to share out in your group, what are the kinds of ways that you what might some emotional labels be that you would like to see or feel, or that you guess others might feel. I used appreciation from our list. And what might some activities be at school that you could do to help support that as an activity? So the idea here is individuals get to come up with their own feelings, then the larger group gets to share out and have some collective agreement that this is going to be our value system, but then what might those activities be? So Chris, if you'll break us up into some small groups for 10 minutes of talking, and then we'll come back and share.
Okay. Having a little technical difficulty. I'm clicking on breakout rooms and it's stopping right there. Kimber, can you just try and see what if you're able to do it?
Happy to try. Breakout rooms. Assign automatically. Let's see how many people big tab you got.
So maybe 8.
Yeah, let's do that. All right, you've got an invitation to join a breakout room. Super. And those of you not in a room, you should be getting a signal to join. Chris, you want to join room?
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm having problems
Oh, all right.
getting when I click on breakout room, it's just giving me a blank. So I'm going to try to see if I can find another way around it.
I tried to divvy up one that nobody joined. Some folks may be on phones and can't or aren't joining.
Okay, finally.
Chris, are you there? If you can either unmute your microphone and share out some great ideas. You could put some things in the large chat. Any ideas for activities? So many folks with experiences in every part of the country.
Uh, 5 minutes timeout for the teachers, especially even administrative, be supportive that if the teacher needs a breather, and not just to run to the restroom, but needs a breather, to be able to get that breather and not be somebody coming in 5 minutes and not be like, oh, they're having a crisis or she needed to do this, to be in like an agreement that you need the 5 minutes, you'll get the 5 minutes. And be able to recoup, do a breathing exercise on your own or whatever, and go back.
Very nice. I like that, Francis. Appreciate that. And how nice to, I visited one school that did a very early morning, pre-early bell in the assembly room group activities. That may not be quite possible with social distancing, but in classrooms, how wonderful if we took the time for everyone to sort of get centered, take a minute to take a few deep breaths, think about our goals for the day, and also to model that for students. Thank you for sharing. Bonnie shared that she and her partner are at the opposite ends of their careers, and they shared their frustrations of maybe coming in and going out. I don't know if you want to talk more about that, Bonnie. Autumn said that one of their schools has a sunshine committee. Very nice. They give out candies or little treats. They write whole school emails complimenting teachers. You can also send out anonymous shout outs to them and they'll share with the whole staff. That's very nice. Yes. I was doing a Friday note where I would put some anonymous recognition, just saying like, thanks to the faculty member who, and then I'd fill in the blank. And I never was really sure if that was going over very well, but somebody recently told me they love trying to figure out who it was. It's like a puzzle for them. And that was one of the ways that they feel good about. So I shared some ideas about, you know, if people are wanting to feel appreciated, there's lots of ways to do that. What about ways to help people feel safe or to feel seen or heard? What might be some ways that we could do that on a school campus to let teachers know that they're seen? And I'll start this as a skill sharing. One of the things that I have read about and I'm practicing is to be a better listener. When things get so hectic as they are right now, we jump to quick responses and answers, and we're trying to move through our day, and we're working on improving our efficiency. And so we're sort of rushing, be more efficient, get more done. And we don't take the minute to stop for a second and do the equivalent of I see you, and I see what you're trying to tell me. And that takes me managing my own feeling of need of like, I've got a to-do list that I've got to get through, and remembering that we're people here interacting with one another and how to be seen. Bonnie says there's an open door and chocolate. Very nice. I've got my chocolate here, which is getting probably a lot of me eating it actually, but.
That's what happens with my chocolate stash as well. Got to take care of yourselves before you can help others, right?
That's great. Yes. All right. Well, I'm going to take out a Mr. Goodbar now just for my my end of session today. Emma's got to go pick up students. Thank you for being here, Emma. I appreciate you. Check in outside of challenges or incidents. Oh, Sheree, that took me a minute to process, but I'm getting it now. Sorry to be slow. Yeah, how Francis has a lot of really good chocolate. You have better quality chocolate than I do, Francis. Sheree has an outstanding piece of advice and great suggestion here, which is the idea that the time that we're checking in with our faculty or our teachers shouldn't be just when there are problems or just when we're dealing with student issues, right? But that tends to be, we manage each other or our relationships with other people, sometimes in the same way with students. Great morning pep rallies. Excellent, Veronica, thank you. Ways to feel happy or engaged, or how about celebratory? Remember when going to work, we used to feel celebratory, we were excited about the things we were going to accomplish that day. So how about those kinds of goal settings or reminders to find strengths or do things positively on a marquee, on an inside whiteboard. I was at a national park recently, and there was a large whiteboard that asked a question and had a pen up on Velcro for people to write answers down to the question. The question was, you know, if it was snowing, what would you take with you to survive? But I'm thinking that those same kinds of questions, what are you thankful for today? Who do you want to appreciate today? What's your goal for the day? There'd be a lot of ways to have students interact in classrooms or even across campus. I'd love to hear some more ideas from you folks, either things that you're doing now or things that you might decide to try. How about two more? Planned breaks are great. I'll share one from a school. They did something called an attendance, which was a celebration of students being in attendance. And so on Friday, if you didn't miss any days that week, everybody left the classroom, teachers and students. They cranked up some line dancing music and folks boogied in the hallways. And if you had been absent, even excused absences for dentists, doctor's appointments, out for sports, you stayed in the classroom for that 3.5 minutes of the song. It wasn't seen as punitive. It was just celebrating the people who had done the extra duty to the extra work to be in class at all times for that entire work. And so when educators were out or absent, they'd stay back too. Again, to model that this wasn't a punishment. It was just, I wasn't here every day this week. And the folks that were got that 3.5 minutes of the attendance. You get the pun. Planned motivators, employee appreciation breakfast. Zuba, that sounds so awesome. Group walking pre-pandemic, yeah. And I wonder if we couldn't do some more of that walking outside, socially distanced. Very nice. Thank you, Sheree. I appreciate it.
We had our Girl Scout troop chalk the walks at all the elementary schools in our district just to say, you know, welcome, we appreciate you, we're glad you're here. And so different Girl Scout troops did it at every elementary school in our district, and they all signed up to do that, and people loved that.
Chalk the walk. So using chalk on the sidewalks.
Yep, just sidewalk chalk, coloring pictures, drawing flowers, saying thank you, and you got this, kind of just inspirational messages.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cheap, and if you can find a Girl Scout troop, you know, you send 8 or 10 kids out there and they can make it look really pretty.
Yeah. Or students or faculty, maybe chalking the walk is what you do on your break. If you need your 5 minutes, you go into the front office and you grab a big one of those fat chalk pieces and say, my classroom's unattended. I need someone to cover for 5 minutes. The point of all this is that big picture wrap up. I'm not going to put my slide back. I'll type my email again here in the chat room. If you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. We are facing educator shortages all over the country, and these are going to be increasing. The rates at which we can produce teachers in higher ed is decreasing. The number of people who are retiring or leaving the profession early is increasing. So that gap is going to continue to widen. And I think we need to take stock and make a point of taking care of one another in schools. This is tough frontline work for everybody, school psychs, counselors, nurses, and educators, and to take the time to voice the need for acknowledging emotion and the role it plays in what we do and our relationships with students and how it translates into what we model for kids. So I think we have a huge opportunity to take advantage of this point in time when people might be listening and recognizing the need in all of us to address this. And remember that education is part of it, how to recognize your emotions, how to label them properly, and then how to self-regulate them are all skills. And one of the things we can do are set norms around emotions with our teacher, educator, faculty. So thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate your being here. Thank you for fighting the good fight and being on the front lines. Your students need you, your communities need you, our society needs you. Thank you. Don't give up. And if you would like to join us next week for the last one, we're going to be talking about progress monitoring, intervention, and assessment. And thanks again, Chris and Aaron and the good folks at Pearson for giving us this time.
Thank you, Dr. Vannest.
Yep, thank you.
Have a good week, everybody.
You too. Bye-bye.